Hello, today I shall be discussing how I would rank the Alien and Predator movies ranked from worst to best, and this is my personal opinion on each movie of the series. So at number 12 I would rank Alien 3 at the bottom of the list. I've only seen this movie 2 times, and for good reason. For one, the movie is so dark and depressing most of the time that it's hard to watch. It's hard to get through. The characters in the movie are dark and aggressive. I thought the direction was okay. I mean, it's very well made. The set design is amazing. The creature itself is amazing. Ripley is a very well acted character. The movie itself is fun, but it's not. It's the one Alien or Predator movie that I would least want to watch ever because it's so dark and dour. Heck, even the bad ones on this list, I would still prefer to watch over this one because of how this one was made. Plus, I don't like the opening of the movie where they kill off two characters that got rid of all three characters that we grew attached to in the last film, which was Aliens, which was Hicks, Newt, and Bishop. So that was a slap in the face to fans like myself. But Alien 3 is still a well-made, watchable film. But another thing I noticed too is that when watching the movie twice, I noticed that the ADR was a bit off throughout most of the film. Some of the lines were too quiet, some of them were too less pronounced. I just feel the movie is not a good experience, which is why it's my least favorite Alien or Predator movie at all on this list. I could go into detail, but we need to move on with the ranking. So, on to the next one. For my number 11th pick, I'd go Alien vs. Predator Requiem. This movie is definitely the worst out of all the movies, but I prefer it to Alien 3 because at least it has ambition. The ambition that is to bring the aliens and predators to Earth, for a big, for a slugfest basically, an invasion type movie. Well, it's not an invasion, but it's an outbreak. The ideas were cool. The execution was absolutely trash. The lighting, for starters, is absolutely appalling. Look at one review for this movie on YouTube, and you'll find that all the reviewers will state that the lighting is absolute trash because you can't see a damn thing in the film. The creature designs are fine. I thought the xenomorph looked cool. Wolf is a standout in the movie, especially with that mask and all his cool gadgets. And of course, the Pred alien is probably my favorite alien from the film. It's a real standout, and it's such a shame that it was put into a poor film. The movie I rank above Alien 3 because it's just a more interesting film to me. It's terrible, but at least it's got the action. At least it's not as nihilistic as Alien 3, and at least you can trust that the alien and predator will fight each other, and that you got the cool designs. But it is the worst of the series by far. Still, it is not a good movie at all. My number 10th spot goes to Ridley Scott's Prometheus. Now, this isn't a bad movie by any stretch, but it's certainly not a movie in the series that I tend to go to often. I mean, the movie is competently made. The designs, the set design, the costumes, the ideas, all of it, it's very well executed. But the movie decides to go in a completely different direction than anybody expected for the Alien or Predator films, especially the Alien series. It gets all philosophical with creation and man and creation being created, why we were created, who created what. It asks these questions which not many viewers tend to want to ask for an alien film, and and that's a reason why this movie puts me off greatly. Uh, I thought Michael Fassbender was amazing in the film, so was Noomi Rapace, uh, and I thought the engineers were cool. I just think they were underutilized. I think if this movie was a genuine Alien prequel that was focused on setting up what was established in the original series, I think it would have been amazing. Unfortunately, the movie was made to spark a completely new trilogy of films, with a third still yet to come. The movie's fine, but it's not a movie I like to watch, or at least not often. It's still watchable though, and that's why it's ranked number 10 on the list. Number 9, I put Alien Covenant on the list. This is the first Alien movie I saw in theaters, so it's part of the reason why I ranked it above Prometheus. Another part is basically this movie just looks better, to be honest. I mean, I like the planet. I like how you've got the Engineer City or Citadel design taking inspiration from Pompeii, with all the corpses on the ground in the wherever that was in the film. Anyway, I thought the movie was very well made. I thought the xenomorph was cool, made a good return. I thought David was amazing in the film. He definitely carried the film when I watched it. He was definitely a standout. The action was fine, although I thought the crane scene was a bit ridiculous. So there's that. The reason why it's ranked lower on the list though is because the movie does go into a bit more Prometheus direction throughout half the runtime of the film, and it sort of grinds all the alien stuff to a halt. There are a lot of ideas in the film that I enjoyed, like the neomorph and the spores. I thought if the movie had focused on that completely, it would have been even more interesting, or it would have been cooler. There was a deleted scene that I heard was supposed to be in the film where the neomorph and the xenomorph have a fight nearing the third act of the film, but they couldn't get it to work because of the prosthetics and the costumes. I also heard an alternate scene that had the neomorph get shot in one direction and the xenomorph getting shot in the other. Honestly, I think it all just jogs down to laziness. They could have made the scene if they wanted to. They just really either didn't have the time or they just didn't care and just wanted to get on with it. Which is such a shame too. I wanted to see more scenes with the neomorph. I think what saves the movie for me though is probably just David being all philosophical and being the villain of the film a lot more than he was in Prometheus. So I thought that was a very welcome addition to the series. His doppelganger, Walter, also was a nice character in the film. Really anything Michael Fassbender is in is good, so I will say that. But the movie just doesn't cut it in comparison to the rest of the series for me. But all in all, I do like this film, and it's very watchable for me. But I prefer other movies to it. That's why it's ranked number 9 on the list. Here's probably one of the more divisive films on the list, The Predator. This is a film that a lot of people hate because it makes no sense. It's a movie that takes the basic premise of the hunter being hunted and the hunter hunting humans and doing something new with it, by adding in autistic children and a giant super predator and, all this cool action scenes. Whilst all of it is a mess, at least it's entertaining. I mean, I thought the inclusion of the big ultimate predator was cool. It looked amazing. I thought the I thought the costumes looked amazing, especially the predator, the practical version. It looks cool. It's got cool armor, and it was a really awesome predator throughout the first and second act. However, I thought the movie itself is more of a comedy, if anything else, an action comedy. But I enjoy the film more than the Prometheus movies and those other two movies that I specified. You know, it might be the worst Predator movie, but it is still an entertaining flick to watch. I mean, it's totally worth watching. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, and if you just turn your brain off and allow the action and the suits and all the cool stuff, if you watch it and you just let it happen, I think you'll enjoy it. The movie I just think it had an ambition, and I think it looked cool. And when I saw it in theaters, it was a good time. Okay, that's why it's higher than other movies on this list. It's not good, or at least it's not the best or anything, but it's just a fun action flick. And if you see it as nothing more than that, it's a good watch. To be honest, when I went into the film, I wasn't expecting it to be that great anyway, so I enjoyed it for what it was. And that's why it's ranked number 8 on the list. As well as that, I hated the character of Boyd Holbrook, which was Quinn McKenna. He was boring and bland. But I do prefer him to Royce, just in case. Royce just doesn't work for me. For number 7, I rank Predators. Now, this movie is a mixed bag for me. Part of me likes it, part of me thinks it's kind of by the numbers, run-of-the-mill Predator movie. If you take away all the other world, other planet aspects, you know, the game preserve stuff, and you know, all the characters being away from Earth, then this is basically just a remake of the original Predator with a different set of characters. The effects are okay, the suit designs are okay, the action is fine, but what really gets me is that they really miscast the lead of the movie, Royce, basically. The character played by Adrian Brody just doesn't work for me. I mean, I always thought he was a bland character. He was fine in the context of the film, but I would have preferred it if they had a very different lead. But other than that, I thought the action was fine, the suit designs were cool, the effects were amazing. I thought the score was a neat homage to the original Predator score from Alan Silvestri. But overall, the film is just bland, and it's just a meh film for me. But it's certainly better than the other Predator film, and it works better, and it does entertain me when I watch it, so that's why it's ranked number 7 on the list. Number 6, this one is definitely divisive for any fans of the Alien and Predator films, because most fans hate Alien vs Predator. So the reason why it's ranked number 6 on the film is because I find it to be a very well-made film with a mediocre script. The CGI is perfect to me. I mean, I love how they used it with the aliens and the predators and all that, and the Queen. I find it's good CGI, which I don't think anybody addresses. The practicals, whilst I don't like the Predator bulk in this film, I thought the xenomorphs looked amazing. I saw this one video where someone really hated the designs of the alien xenomorphs in this film, and I totally disagree with them. I thought the aliens looked amazing in this film. They look vicious, they look dangerous, they look basically like any kind of alien. But these aliens were specifically designed to be in action scenes, so you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt when you really think about it. The characters were crap, with exception to maybe Wayland, although I did find Sebastian to be a little bit interesting in the film, who was just a random archaeologist character in the film. But other than that, the characters are pretty much run-of-the-mill, stupid horror characters 101. There's this one guy in the film who talks about his kids, and you're like, oh, he's gonna die, yeah, whatever. Yeah, he was a terrible character. But the action is neat, the designs are neat. I thought the pyramid idea was actually really good and very well executed, for the time at least. However, the movie is mediocre. I mean, there are scenes in the film which don't work in an Alien and Predator film, like the bullet time facehugger scene. That didn't work at all. The movie, though, is fine. It's one of my first introductions to the series. Like, this and Alien were basically the first movies I watched in the series, and that's what got me into the series besides the video games. So I'll give it credit where credit is due. But I don't think it's actually as bad as people make it out to be. In fact, I actually prefer this as my third Predator film than the other two, when I really think about it. The movie, though, I think is fine, and I also prefer it to the Prometheus movies. You've got to take into account that this came before all that. This came before Prometheus, this came before all the other sequels in the series. Nobody knew that they wanted to do an Alien prequel or a Predator sequel at the time, so they just made what they could, and they tried to make sense out of the continuity. It's just the later films that sort of mess it up a little bit and change it. But that doesn't stop me from watching this film and enjoying it when I do. So that's why Alien vs Predator is number 6. Number 5 is another controversial one, and it's Alien Resurrection. This movie, I think, is actually very well made. I mean, it's made by a French director who is famous for artsy films. So when the studio hired them, I think they got exactly what they were expecting. Insane shots, insane storytelling, insane visuals, everything being insane. But they also got the writer for Buffy and Toy Story and The Avengers and Serenity. That is Joss Whedon. His writing, he's still, this is Joss at the beginning of his career, so that's why his writing is a little bit rocky at times. But other than that, I thought the characters in this film were actually cool and interesting, way more so than anybody else on this list. I thought that Ron Perlman's Jonah was awesome. I love his no crap attitude and anger issues. I thought he was cool. I thought Ripley was interesting in the film as she was, spoiler alert, dead at the end of Alien 3, so they cloned her. I thought that aspect of the film was an interesting one, especially when I first heard of it. I was like, what? Ripley's a clone? But I thought she was quite cool in a clone. With exception to the newborn design, I thought the design of the xenomorphs in this film were amazing. The brown tint to their skin and the sloped foreheads and the idea that they can swim, I thought that was all welcome, and I thought it all looked cool when I watched the film. So I'll give them credit for that. But I thought the newborn was a complete mess up when they made the film. They could have gone with a completely different third act or a completely different design, and it would have made the movie better. But that's what they went with, and I suppose it works within the context of the film. but I think the movie could have been saved if they rewrote the third act. Personally, I mean, here's an idea right now. What if instead of the newborn, they decided to just create a completely new clone xenomorph? Make a completely new xenomorph from scratch, like get all the DNA samples and just make it, instead of having the queen be pregnant with this abomination which nobody likes. I think it would have at least saved the third act. I also heard script ideas that there'd be a third act on Earth, that there'd be a third act in like this big greenhouse on the ship. What they went with was kind of by the numbers and bland. But other than the third act, I thought the rest of the movie was actually very well made. When you really think about it, if you watch this movie as a standalone film, I think it works on its own merit, basically. It works as this artsy, ridiculous, over-the-top sci-fi action movie which can be easily watched when you're in a good mood. I rank it above Alien vs Predator because it has Ripley and it has the water scene, which is a highlight for me personally. I mean, I always love the idea of aliens swimming underwater and the action being all tense and fast. I also enjoy the ladder scene that comes right after that. But all in all, the film is just okay for me. I enjoy it more than most, and I think it's an interesting alien film. For number 4, this is probably the most controversial pick because most fans would rank this as number 1. Alien. This is a film that I really enjoy when I watch it, but it's not a movie I tend to watch often because it's very slow moving, it's very sluggishly paced at times. I mean, the set design was amazing. I love the Nostromo, I love the costume designs, I love the acting from everyone. Basically, I love this whole movie. Especially love the xenomorph in the film. It's very well designed, it's very intimidating. It's probably my favourite alien design in the whole series. However, when watching the film, it is a slow burn to get through, and I'm more of an action fan. So, I've got nothing against the film. I'm not criticising it. I'm just saying it's not the sort of movie I'd watch if I had to choose between this and Aliens. I'd choose Aliens. The movie is very well made. It sticks out. It's a classic. The chestburster scene, it got me the first time I watched it, like everyone else. But and also the facehugger, the practical effects, they're all amazing. The Nostromo crew being Kane, Lambert, Ash, Dallas, Brett, Parker, and Ripley, they're all cool characters. They're all interesting to me. They also have a very human feel to them, very regular folk, truckers in space sort of feel. And I like that aspect to the film. But there are other films that I prefer in this series to the first movie. I also love the video game that came right after this movie, which was Alien Isolation. I thought that was also really well made. But this movie is a classic for all intents and purposes, and that's why I rank it here. It's certainly one of the greatest movies of all time, but for me, I prefer other movies in the series, which is why Alien is ranked at number 4. This is a subjective list, not objective. So, on to the next one. For number 3, I put Predator 2. Now, a lot of people will be angry at me for putting this above Alien, but let me speak. I find this movie to be very entertaining. It's definitely the best sequel out of all the Predator movies. It stands out to me because of the characters and the Predator itself and the city setting. This is the only movie in the whole series which takes place in a city. So it's interesting to me that it's the least rated Predator film on Rotten Tomatoes, excluding the Alien vs Predator movies. I actually think it's the best sequel, and I'm actually astonished that movies like The Predator and Predators were ranked above it. Predators might be a better made film, but it doesn't have as good of characters as this movie. I mean, you've got Danny Glover as Lieutenant Harrigan. Basically, he's just playing Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon again, but more grungy, more grumpy. You've got Bill Paxton as Jerry Lambert in the film. He's basically doing a rip on Hudson, which is very welcome because I love that character as well. And he's probably the best character in the film, right next to Harrigan. And then you've got Gary Busey playing Keyes, the secretive antagonist in the film, who isn't really that bad. The movie to me is very interesting because the Predator is hunting in the city setting, and it's a very unique divergent from a very unique change from the first film, as you have the Predator using new weapons, showing new behavior, and really just looking cool in the film. The City Hunter Predator is my favorite Predator design, mostly because of the mask. But I also think it's cool because it's got the cool weapons, like the combi stick and the throwing disc. The music in this movie is definitely the best Predator theme. I think it's the best because it adds the drumming and the cool jungle motifs in the city setting, giving a whole urban jungle sort of feel to the film. I think the movie just looks amazing and the acting is fine. I mean, it is a very mean-spirited film, which is why it's probably rated as low as it is. But I don't think this movie is bad at all. I think it's actually the best sequel in the Predator films and is severely underrated. I enjoy it more than Alien purely because it's got the action, and I'm more of a Predator fan than an Alien fan, if I'm being completely honest. But it's also a more interesting film to me when I think about it. I saw this on my 16th birthday, which is why it holds a special place in my heart. I thought the movie was cool. That's why Predator 2 is rated number 3 on the list, and this is number 10 on my top 10 favorite movies list, if I have one. After Predator 2, I put Aliens as number 2 because it's a very well-made action and sci-fi film. The characters were amazing. I thought Ripley had the best character arc in the film. Newt was a good child actress. The actress that is, but I thought the character was very well done in the film. The pulse rifle was awesome. The Marines were a cool group of heroes that we could get behind in the film, especially Hudson. He was a very cool character in the film that we really didn't want to see die. I think this movie stands out to me because it basically takes what Alien did so well and expands upon it with Marines and action and hordes of aliens. The Queen was basically the cherry on top of this large ice cream, with the power loader being the sprinkles and the Marines in their action being the chocolate ice cream. Uh, the movie is amazing and it's very well made. It's also the most rewatchable Alien film in the series for me. I also put this on my top 10 list from between 2 to 5 because I have other favourite films on that list, but I don't know where to put it. So the direction of the film is very well made. I like the score by James Horner. It works very well as an action piece. And the characters I fell in love with when I watched the film. But this movie just takes the second spot for me because the next movie that takes the number one spot, that takes the cake, I enjoy more. So let's move on to it, shall we? For number one, I put Predator. This movie is definitely my favorite in the entirety of the Alien and Predator series. This is probably my favorite movie that I've ever seen because it has a very simple premise of a group of soldiers on a rescue team going into the jungle, being hunted by an unseen extraterrestrial threat. The set of the jungle is amazing to me. I love the aesthetic. I think it captures it the best in all of the Predator movies. I thought the design of the jungle hunter Predator was amazing. I love how in the film you don't see it at all. It takes a certain amount of time until you see the full reveal in the film. The character of Dutch, played by Schwarzenegger, is definitely my favorite protagonist in the series. Ripley would take second spot, but I'm a huge Schwarzenegger fan personally, so I love that character. I think it's his second iconic role next to the Terminator. Dylan was a cool character. Blaine, really, really awesome. Mac, Shane Black, Hawkins, and Billy. Billy and Poncho, of course. The action was amazing. I love the third act where Dutch is facing off against the Predator with his wits and his will by putting on some mud to hide himself from the Predator. And the fist fight where he takes off the mask. The Predator, that is. Kevin Peter Hall really pulled off the build of the Predator, with how tall he was and how monstrous he was. And he just really made the Predator what it is today. The design looks cool. I'd still prefer the City Hunter design because of that mask, but this one would be second next to it to me, which is definitely something a lot of people would feel divided by. Still, this is the best Predator movie there is and the best Predator design. But it's also a very simple premise, a simple monster movie, you could say. And it really works well in that genre. The music, the soundtrack by Alan Silvestri, genius. I always love to hear the Predator theme. It works very well in the film, and I feel the best scene for me that I've ever seen in any film has to be the scene where the Predator reveals itself from the water, and Dutch discovers how to hide. Very well shot scene. I love the visual effects. You get to see the Predator in all its glory. And it's such a very well made scene, very thrilling, very tense, very memorable. And you've got the waterfall behind it, which is also really cool. But this movie is my favorite in all the Alien, Predator, AVP, Prometheus movies because it's simple, it has good characters, and it's just very well made. So that's how I'd rank all the Alien and Predator films from worst to best. I know it's a very divided rating, but this is my subjective view, and this is based on how I like to watch the films. Whenever I watch the Alien and Predator films, I like to watch them all as one big series of films. It just makes the movies more interesting to me. which is why I enjoy watching each movie one by one each year. So that's my list from worst to best. Please subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace.